Okay, so this is the first demonstration going over SketchUp Pro. We're just going to basically be briefly discussing the interface here. So I've gone ahead and booted it up and created, or opened up the template for just a standard feet and inches. And I've also gone in here and started to adjust some of the standard toolbars in here, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. First thing you guys need to know, just as a brief discussion about the software itself, this is a surface modeler. And so what that means is that it works through polygons, and so there's no mathematical stuff like in Rhino where things can become infinitely smooth. The more polygons that you create, the heavier the model is that you're going to create, and therefore it's going to sort of impact how the model is going to perform on your computer depending on how you spec out your machine. So it's important to note. The way that this works, though, from that standpoint of it being a surface modeler, is you start with points lead to lines lead to areas, and then so those areas will automatically be enclosed to create surfaces. So that's something that you guys want to pay attention to. So the one other thing in here, just before we get started, as you start to draw geometry, if we go over here, and I'm just going to use this. There's no stacking geometry in here, so if you draw a line and then draw a line immediately over it that occupies the same geometric space, that is automatically going to be deleted, and it's going to create a division in here so that you guys can start to make and modify those geometries. Okay, you can see how it broke here. And the other really important thing that you need to pay attention to is that SketchUp utilizes what they're calling an Inference Engine. Essentially what it is, it works kind of similar to Revit in that it automatically constrains the model geometry to other model geometry. It's kind of a double-edged sword. When you're dealing with the geometry, you're going to have to work around some of that, because sometimes it's going to not do what you're wanting it to do, and other times it's going to just you're going to have to come up with clever ways to model. It actually works very similar to the way Revit used to work in the older versions prior to 2009 and 2008, where you're sort of just manipulating a few simple tools to get really complex results if you're clever enough to engage those in the appropriate way. The last thing that you want to pay attention to as you start to engage the software is that you're going to want to familiarize yourself with some of the hotkeys. Particularly if you use a different mouse. I had to actually reprogram my mouse for this because I use a trackball. The software really likes just regular old mice with a wheel, so you can click. It uses that for all of the viewport navigation. So if you use your center click, you can start to navigate. If you hold shift and center click, you can start to pan, things in that nature. And actually, if you use the wheel, which I don't have on this particular mouse, you can zoom in and out. And everything is oriented around wherever your cursor is. So if I click there, it's rotating around that pivot point. If I click here, it's going to rotate around that pivot point. Okay? And so those are just some of the basic viewport tools here. Looking at the sort of toolbars that pop up across here, the first thing you're probably going to want to pull up is going to add some of these guys in here. So if I go under View Toolbars, we can pull up some of these things, and I would highly recommend turning on the Views toolbar here. That'll enable you to get these guys where we can actually look at things in elevation, plan section, all of that as we go through it. And so those are key views that you're just going to want to have access to as you go through it. There are other ways to create other views in the software, and we'll go through that a little bit later as we go do more tutorials of this. But that's probably going to be something really key. I've also turned on the view tools so that I can undo view changes and go to zoom extents and things like that. Things that you may not use super frequently, but something you will use on occasion. Moving along, we have our selection tool. The hotkey for that is spacebar. So if you want to get into there and you hit space, that'll take you to selection tool. You have the line tool, which is L. You can see here. Then we can draw rectangles, circles, all that. And then if we come in here, escape. Down in our guide, we have a little sort of like a command line here down at the bottom. Whenever you select a tool, they call this the measurements dialog, but really it's just the the operator dialog here, so we can set the number of sides if we want to do this. So say right now I'm on the circle tool. If I want to draw a circle with, well, it won't really be a circle, it'll be a polygon. I can click and then it'll draw a polygon, and you can see how it's subdividing that. And then we can draw the radius. So as you guys will go through more tutorials in terms of how to engage some of these tools. Once you've done that, we can come over here. We have the push and pull. This is really similar to how Revit used to work way back when. And if I click and zoom out here, space, and so you can start to see, and it automatically is producing a solid here. I haven't actually taken this to do any 3D printing with it, but it seems like this works relatively well for modeling 3D prints. We'll see once I actually dive into the software a little bit more to see how it connects with some of the other softwares and actually exports to formats like STL and things like that. So we have these. We can start to move, rotate, offset. We can do a couple of little clever things in here. We can connect this to Google Earth. We have our layers tool here. That's also something that I popped on. That's really handy. I don't need to discuss at any length why layers are useful. They help you separate information so you can edit it later. And that's essentially the interface here. And we'll go ahead and get into some more of the modeling as we go through this. But again, we can start to do this. And what will happen is, as we start to delete these edges, we can start to see what it's automatically going to do here. And I'm just going to give you one thing you want to pay attention to here. Oh, and back to that. Okay, and so this is where things start to get a little bit tricky if you're not paying attention to the Inference Engine running here. If I click once, I select the surface. If I double click, I select the surface and the bounding geometry. And if I triple click, I select all of the geometry that's associated with that volume. If we come in here and we can go and rotate, we can pick this up and grab it. You can see the Inference Engine is going to automatically create all these nice folds. As long as we're paying attention and we know how that it's going to act, that's great. If you don't know how it's going to act, that's something you want to pay attention to as well. And there's no way to turn off the Inference Engine, so it's absolutely there to stay. So despite all that, you got to be really clever about how you're gonna end up using that. So we wanted to give this geometry. And then if you use the arrow keys, you can control the axis up and down. We'll set it on certain axes, left and right. We'll turn it on the other axes. So if I press up, it's going to go to the z-axis, and you can see how we can start to really quickly get to some more complex geometries. All right.